Hello guys, in today's video we're going to be installing Windows XP 64-bit edition, specifically the 2003 release. Now, what makes this release interesting is that it didn't target the popular AMD 64 platform, which is what most of our 64-bit PCs run today, but rather the Intel Itanium processor. While Microsoft would release Windows XP Professional x64 edition for AMD 64 platforms in 2005 and support it with security updates all the way until 2015, they would quietly drop support for the Itanium version in 2005, just 3 years after its initial release. With this version of Windows being so short-lived, it's not surprising that many people have never heard of it. No doubt part of the reason we don't see much discussion of this Windows XP edition is that you can't run it on any run-of-the-mill x86 or AMD 64 machine. No, you need a period-correct Itanium-based workstation. To make things worse, these workstations, produced mainly by HP, weren't exactly ubiquitous, even at the time, with the platform attracting little interest from its target markets. And you can't emulate it either. At the time of recording this video, there are no Itanium emulators available that can run a full operating system. Fortunately, I was able to get my hands on this HP Workstation ZX6000. According to OpenPA.net, this model was launched in 2002 and was the final and fastest Itanium workstation launched by HP. The one I have here came with the top-end CPU configuration, a pair of Intel Itanium 2 chips, each clocked at 1.5 GHz, 8GB of RAM, and an ATI FireGL X1 graphics card. And now you see we're at the screen where we can start setup properly. You'll see it says Windows XP Professional Setup there actually. So that's clearly something that they didn't even change in this version between this and the x86 version they based it on. So we'll press enter here to start setup. And we'll agree to the terms and conditions that we're definitely going to read. And well, here's one of the first differences, one of the only differences we'll really see here. We see it mentions that we're installing it on a GPT disk, and we've got two partitions here, FAT32 partition and an NTFS partition. So this little 1GB FAT32 partition, this is actually our EFI partition, and it's because this system uses EFI to boot. We need to have an EFI partition where all of the boot files are stored. Unlike a normal x86 Windows XP computer, its boot data would be stored in the master boot record, which is just a little sector at the start of the hard drive. So we're going to leave this FAT32 partition alone because I have deleted that before, and you end up in a world of pain if you delete that because it's really difficult to get it back, at least from within Windows XP setup. And we're just going to delete this NTFS partition here. Press L to confirm. And then we're going to set up Windows on the unpartitioned space. Press enter here. When it asks us, we'll just format with NTFS quick. And we'll see it starts formatting our 69 GB drive rather. Okay, this is strange. I've never seen this before. Amazing. Let's try that again. We might have to do a full format of this disk. Okay, let's try and do a full format. That is going to take a little while, unfortunately, so if this does seem to work, I'll spare you the waiting and just do a time lapse here. Okay, so now I'm here formatting an EFI system partition that I just had to create, which is one of the more unusual things about setting up Windows on this computer. I had to delete all the partitions off the disk, so I've had to manually set this up, and I have to set up a Microsoft System Recovery partition as well, I think, an MSR partition, or Microsoft System Reserved, I think, maybe, and then a usual NTFS partition as well. And we see here after that it's automatically set up for us. SFAT partition, that's the EFI partition, and the reserved partition here, which I think is that MSR partition that I was talking about earlier. Now let's go and install Windows on the unpartitioned space. Do a quick format. There we go. Didn't get this far the last time. So now it's going to begin copying the files, and there we go. See, a couple of files there also didn't copy. This version of Windows XP does have, I found a lot of weird issues, just bugs that crop up sometimes. I don't believe those files that didn't copy, I don't believe they were anything critical for our particular configuration. Now the file copy process finishing. We should be restarting soon, as is usual. There we go, so just press enter now. You'll also notice I've not been using a screen capture program for that last section. Unfortunately, this machine doesn't really like my capture card, at least when we're doing text mode setup. But I think once we get into the graphical portion of the setup, which we're just going into now, I should be able to start up my capture card. But we shall see. And again, we just need to wait for this really long boot process. It usually takes ages before it even turns on the display. There we go. And we are now starting up into the graphical portion of setup. So I will go and see if I can set up my capture card now. You can see now we are installing devices. My capture card is still initializing, so we'll see if it works. It might not though. Now really hear that loud hard drive. Okay, this is pretty standard so far. We are now at the point where it's asking us to set up our regional settings. I'm just going to go in here and select United Kingdom because that's where I am. And set my keyboard layout correctly. Type in my name here. And I'll go away and type the product key. And with that done, we can choose a secure administrator password. choose our time zone here. And it will begin configuring the network. Unfortunately, this Windows XP disk, in my experience, does have the network drivers for this machine baked in, so that should work out of the box. I know it is really difficult these days to find the Itanium versions of various hardware drivers, because these machines were hardly ever used by anyone, because 64-bit these days is associated with AMD 64 platforms. Oftentimes you go online, you look for the 64-bit drivers for something, it'll show you the AMD 64 drivers. And sometimes even I've seen Itanium drivers marked the other way, or vice versa. We'll just leave all these settings as the default. And it's now just going to copy some more files. You see another difference here is it's got the messages in the setup are specific to this edition, instead of just using the ones out of Professional. Anyway, I'll be back when it's finished copying. So we're now just finishing up here, and we should be getting ready to restart probably one final time before we get to the Windows XP desktop. Okay, so we are now rebooting for the last time. We should be booting up to the Windows XP desktop now. You see there we're being asked for an administrator password, so I'll just type that in quickly and we should be able to get logged in. You'll also see here that we've not gone through any of the usual out-of-box experience on this version of Windows. That's just been stripped out. I believe that was also the case on the Professional X64 edition. Also see that the graphics drivers have not been installed yet, so I'll have to go and get them installed. And hopefully once that's done, I should be able to use the capture card. Okay, so now I've finally got the capture card working, so we don't need to be filming the screen any longer. So let's have a little look around here then. So you can see first of all that we're running in the Windows Classic theme, and on this version of Windows you actually can't enable the Luna theme, even if you want to, because as we'll see here, it's just not in this operating system. And unlike Windows Server 2003 actually, where you could enable the theme service manually and then enable the Luna theme, you can't even do that here because the theme service is one of several consumer-oriented features that Microsoft has stripped out of this edition of Windows XP. If we go in here, we'll see that there is also no Windows Media Player, no Windows Movie Maker either. This version of Windows, like the AMD 64 version of Windows XP, also lacks 16-bit MS-DOS application support. So if we go in here, right-click on Computer and select Properties, you can see that we do have our Itanium 2 processor, 1.5 GHz, or 8 GB of RAM, which was a lot for the time that this operating system in this computer was released. Back in 2002. So go into Device Manager here, have a look at what we've got. Our FireGL graphics card, our ACPI IA64 based PC. IA64 is a short way of writing Itanium based PC. You also see here under our processors. It doesn't actually tell us what processor we've got in here. Also, our audio controller, I've never been able to find a driver for Windows XP for that, but I presume there is one out there because these PCs were sold for digital content creation, like video editing and stuff, so I'd assume they'd want audio output for that. Anyway though, what we do have are two versions of Internet Explorer. So you've got this regular one here, this is a native Itanium 64-bit Internet Explorer. We also have a 32-bit one. This is an x86 copy of Internet Explorer that runs under emulation. It's going to come up with this stupid connection wizard, go away. Here we go. So I'm not connected to the internet right now on this. I'll plug in a network cable later on. But as we can see here, that's in our 32-bit version. Now this was maintained because there were actually a lot of ActiveX controls at the time which were compiled for 32-bit x86 processors, and they needed to run on a 32-bit version of Internet Explorer. These were quite prevalent, like, on lots of different websites, like even banks and stuff, so people would want to be able to use those extensions to access those services. And there was also the Windows Update website using ActiveX control, a 32-bit one. So you need to use a 32-bit Internet Explorer to go on to Windows Update. Of course, we also have the 64-bit version here. You go in here, it says 64-bit edition here on the about screen. And it's pretty much the same, but it'll run a lot faster because it's not being emulated, and you won't be able to run your 32-bit controls on it. Now, another thing we see in here is that we have got a lot of the usual desktops from Windows XP. We can set some of these here, got Bubbles one as well, we've seen that one. None of the pictures are in here though. And if we click on Bliss, it's actually the Windows XP logo wallpaper, and there's no Bliss in here, sadly. We do get a special 64-bit edition wallpaper though, which is nice. So you can let everybody who uses your computer know that you're running the 64-bit edition. We also do have games included, which is nice because the enterprise editions of Windows and later versions didn't come with these installed by default, so we can play some solitaire if we want. Have all the usual user folders. If we go into control panel, we'll see it's just the usual control panel again, but not themed. It's just got its white background instead of the usual blue. And as usual, we can click on user accounts. However, it doesn't open the normal user accounts page, but rather this old one. It looks like it's from Windows 2000 or something. We've also got add remove programs. That's just the normal interface. We've got the graphics driver stuff in here. We'll add new programs, add remove components, and it'll show us the list of everything that we've installed or everything that we can install. We can go in here and we can install internet information services if we wanted to run a web server off this. I really wouldn't recommend doing that. right now, because this hasn't had security updates now in 20 years, so not a good idea. Also, this weird x86 control panel icons thing. There's nothing in here, but I think this is because some drivers or something you might install some x86 binaries, you know, for just controlling things, like for a graphics card or something. I've not got anything like that installed though, so not going to see anything in there. Also got Outlook Express as usual. Under accessories, we've got the usual WordPad, Paint, Notepad, command prompt, usual things you'd expect from a Windows XP system. Don't have any CD playback capabilities, also can't burn CDs, can't play DVD movies. So yeah, I think that's pretty much going to be it for today's little overview of this edition of Windows XP. I'm planning to make a video, maybe out by next week, where I look at installing some applications on this, see what software we can run on it. Because bear in mind, it is a really old version of Windows XP at this point. It hasn't actually had any service packs, so I'm not going to be able to even install anything close to the latest browsers or whatever on it. And yeah, also maybe look at trying to update this thing, because you know Windows Update for this version of Windows XP shut down quite a long time ago. But there is projects like Legacy Update, Windows Update Restored, so I'll have a look at those if you're interested and see if we can run them on this version of Windows. But anyway, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments if there's anything you'd like me to test on this and show you. See you next time.